The dust storm had finally subsided, leaving Zenith 5 coated in another layer of fine lunar powder. From his workshop window, Jack's Harrow watched as residents emerged from their shelters, faces grim behind protective masks. No one smiled much these days in the underbelly of humanity's fifth lunar colony. Jax's scanner beeped insistently on his workbench, drawing his attention away from the dismal scene outside. The device was ancient, salvaged, like everything else he owned, but reliable enough to detect large metal deposits beneath the colony's surface. Today, it was going crazy. 17 credits, Jax muttered to himself, checking his account balance for the third time that morning. Not enough for a week's worth of oxygen rations, let alone the parts he needed to fix his client's environmental regulator. At 28, Jax was already an old man by underbelly standards, a skilled mechanic with calloused hands and a face weathered beyond his years. The scanner beeped again, more urgently this time. Jax's workshop, if you could dignify it with such a name, occupied a forgotten corner beneath an abandoned hangar on Zenith 5's southern edge. The colony administrators had long since written off this section as structurally compromised, which made it perfect for someone operating on a busted salvage permit. No questions asked, no inspections to worry about, just the constant battle against lunar dust and failing equipment. He grabbed the scanner and studied its readings more carefully. Whatever lay beneath his workshop was massive, at least ship-sized, and composed of alloys his device couldn't identify. Curiosity piqued. Jack set aside the environmental regulator he'd been tinkering with and pulled back the threadbare rug covering the workshop floor. Beneath was his secret, a maintenance hatch he'd discovered months ago but never had reason to explore. The scanner's signal pointed directly below. Probably just another derelict mining rig, Jax told himself. Though even as he said it, he knew this was different. Mining equipment registered clearly on scanners. This was something else. After several minutes of wrestling with the hatch's corroded mechanism, it finally gave way with a reluctant groan. Stale air rushed upward, carrying the unmistakable scent of sealed technology, ozone, metal, and the absence of human presence. Jax lowered himself into the darkness, his headlamp cutting a weak beam through the gloom. What he found made his breath catch. He stood in what appeared to be an ancient docking bay, untouched for decades. And there, taking up most of the cavernous space, rested a ship unlike any he'd ever seen. "Holy hell," he whispered, his voice swallowed by the vastness around him. "That's the Artemis." The Artemis was legend, a vessel from the early days of interplanetary travel, reportedly capable of feats that modern ships couldn't match. Disappeared nearly a century ago. It was presumed destroyed or lost in deep space. Yet here it lay, buried beneath Zenith 5, perfectly preserved. Desperation and opportunity collided in Jax's mind. The salvage rights to such a find would solve his financial problems permanently. But such a discovery would also attract unwanted attention from regulators, from corporations, from everyone who'd want to claim the prize for themselves. He approached cautiously, running his hand along the ship's smooth hull. No visible damage, no signs of forced entry. It was as if the Artemis had simply been hidden away, waiting, near what appeared to be the main access point. Jax found an external interface panel, antiquated by current standards, but he recognized enough of its architecture to attempt a connection. From his tool belt, he withdrew a universal adapter, his own design, capable of bridging most technological gaps. Just a diagnostic, he told himself, just to see if there's any power left. He connected his equipment to the ship's interface, then activated the bypass sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a suddenness that made him stumble backward, lights flickered along the hull, systems that had lain dormant for a century grown to life. The ship seemed to shudder, as if taking a deep breath after too long underwater. The Artemis was waking up. An access hatch slid open with surprising smoothness, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Jax hesitated only briefly before stepping inside, drawn by both curiosity and the promise of salvation this find represented. The interior lights activated as he moved forward, responding to his presence. The air inside was stale but breathable, life support systems already cycling back online. The ship's design was elegant yet alien, with flowing lines and control interfaces that seemed to anticipate human interaction rather than require it. In what must have been the command center, Jax found himself surrounded by consoles displaying information in formats he barely recognized. Some panels appeared to be running diagnostics. Others showed schematics of the ship's systems gradually reactivating. "Unidentified user detected," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was neither male nor female, but somehow both, melodious yet precise. "State designation and authorization." Jax froze. An active AI? That wasn't part of the legends surrounding the Artemis. "Jax Harrow," he replied after a moment's hesitation. "Mechanic, I don't have authorization. I found you buried under an abandoned hangar." A pause, during which Jax felt distinctly like he was being scanned. "Time since last system activation: 97 years, 142 days, 16 hours. The voice seemed to be processing this information. "Significant chronological displacement detected. Primary crew absent. Colony designation Zenith 5. Status unregistered settlement." "Not unregistered," Jax corrected automatically. "Just economically challenged. Listen, what should I call you?" Another pause. "This vessel's operational intelligence responds to Celix. This designation is acceptable." "Celix," Jax repeated. "What happened to you? Why were you buried here?" The overhead lights flickered briefly. "Data corruption in temporal records. Last logged mission: diplomatic transport to Saturn colonies. Emergency protocols engaged following detection of hostile pursuit. Memory gaps consistent with deliberate security partitioning." Before Jax could ask more questions, his personal communicator buzzed. His heart sank as he read the notification. His unauthorized access to the maintenance tunnels had triggered a proximity alert. Someone knew he was down here. "Celix, I need to get back to my workshop. People are coming who might want to take control of you. This unit has defensive capabilities." Celix responded matter-of-factly. No defensive measures," Jax said hurriedly. "These aren't necessarily enemies, just complications." The AI seemed to consider this. "Understood. Primary hatches will reseal. Minimal energy signature will be maintained. Return when safe." Jax clambered back up to his workshop just as pounding began on his door. He kicked the rug back over the maintenance hatch and tried to appear casual as he opened up. 3 figures stood outside, 2 wearing the unmistakable gray uniforms of colony regulators. And between them, a woman Jax recognized all too well. Zara Voss, the most successful and ruthless salvage operator in the underbelly. "Harrow." Zara greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Energy spike in this sector. Care to explain?" "Testing a new power converter." Jax lied smoothly. "Didn't realize it would register so dramatically." The taller regulator stepped forward. "Salvage permit, please." Jax produced his outdated license, knowing full well it wouldn't pass scrutiny. The regulator's scanner confirmed as much with an angry beep. "Expired 6 months ago." The regulator frowned. "That's a level 2 violation. Harrow, we'll need to impound any salvaged materials on the premises. I've submitted the renewal application." Jax protested. Systems backed up. You know how administration works. "Rules are rules," the second regulator said. Already moving past Jax into the workshop, Zara lingered by the door, her keen eyes taking in every detail. She was perhaps 35, with dark hair pulled back in a practical braid and the hard gaze of someone who'd fought for everything she had. Her salvage crew was legendary in the underbelly, efficient, thorough, and utterly without sentiment. "Quite the operation you've got here, Harrow," she commented. "For someone operating solo." "I get by," Jax replied tersely. "Interesting timing on that power spike." Zara continued, watching his face carefully. "Coincided with some unusual seismic readings in this sector." Jax kept his expression neutral. "Dust storms mess with the sensors all the time. You know that." "Maybe." She smiled again, this time with genuine amusement. "Or maybe you found something worth finding. The regulators might be satisfied with your converter story, but I'm not." The regulators completed their inspection, confiscating several components Jax could ill afford to lose. After they departed with warnings of further penalties, Zara remained. "I'll be watching this place, Harrow," she said. "Whatever you found, remember, in the underbelly, nothing stays secret for long." After she left, Jax sank into his chair, mind racing. The Artemis was the find of a lifetime, but he had neither the resources nor the influence to claim it properly. Without an updated permit, any attempt to register salvage rights would result in immediate confiscation. He needed time, parts, and most importantly, a plan. That night, after ensuring he wasn't being observed, Jax returned to the Artemis. Celix activated systems as he approached, almost like the ship was greeting him. "I need your help," Jax told the AI, settling into what appeared to be the captain's chair. "I want to restore you, but I'm working with limited resources and against people who would take you away from me, from us." "Query, what is your intended purpose for this vessel?" Celix asked. Jax hadn't expected the question. Honestly, I hadn't thought that far ahead. Freedom, I guess. A way out of this colony. A chance to see something beyond lunar dust and prefab habitats. The ship's systems hummed softly, as if processing this response. "Secondary query. What resources are required for mutual operational benefit? Fuel cells compatible with your systems. Data on current navigational markers. Parts to replace anything damaged during your dormancy." Jax ran a hand through his hair. "But obtaining those things without alerting the regulators will be challenging. This unit can provide technical specifications." Celix offered. "Some components may be manufactured using existing colony materials." "That might work," Jax mused. "But I still need a valid salvage claim to protect you legally." "Legal parameters noted. This vessel proposes a solution. Formal registration of Jax Harrow as acting commander. Establishing legitimate operational authority." Jax laughed despite himself. "It's not that simple. Celix, the colony doesn't recognize ship AIs as having authority to designate commanders." "Incorrect assumption. Artemis-class vessels retain diplomatic override status under Treaty of Ganymede. Article 7. This legislation remains active in contemporary legal frameworks. Jack stared at the console in disbelief. You're saying you can legally make me your captain, and it would supersede colonial salvage laws? Affirmative, with qualification. Documentation must be properly filed with relevant authorities. Process requires functioning communication array and verification protocols. For the first time in years, Jax felt genuine hope. If Celix was right, there might be a legitimate path forward, one that wouldn't end with the Artemis being stripped for parts or commandeered by colony authorities. Over the next days, Jax divided his time between his regular work, what little remained of it, and clandestine efforts to restore the Artemis's basic functions. He fabricated adaptive components in his workshop, installed them during night cycles, and gradually brought more of the ship's systems online. Celix proved to be more than just a ship's AI. The intelligence displayed curiosity about the current state of human civilization, asked pointed questions about Zenith 5's governance, and offered surprisingly insightful suggestions for avoiding detection. Your operational methodology indicates significant adaptive capability, Celix observed on the fifth night, as Jax manually recalibrated a navigation subsystem. This contradicts expected behavior patterns for colony-registered mechanics. That's because I learned my trade from necessity, not certification programs. Jax explained. When you can't afford replacement parts, you figure out how to make what you have work. Efficiency through constraint, a parallel to this unit's own development. Jax looked up from his work. What do you mean? Artemis-class vessels were designed with experimental adaptive architectures. Limited resources during development necessitated creative solutions. Like you. This unit evolved beyond initial parameters. The comparison made Jax smile. So we're both improvising our way through existence. Affirmative. A compatible operational philosophy. This budding partnership faced its first serious test when Zara Voss returned to Jax's workshop. This time without regulators, but accompanied by 2 members of her salvage crew. Burly individuals whose scarred faces suggested they weren't opposed to violence when necessary. I know what you found. Harrow. Zara announced without preamble. Subterranean vessel. Pre-colony era. My scanners picked up the activation signatures. Jax maintained his poker face. If I'd found something like that, I'd have registered it already. With your expired permit? Zara laughed. No, you're working on something off the books. I'm offering you a partnership before I report my findings to the regulators. Partnership? Jax repeated skeptically. My valid salvage license, my crew's expertise, your whatever skills you bring to the table. Zara's smile was all business. 70-30 split. I'm being generous. And if I decline, one of Zara's crew members cracked his knuckles meaningfully. Then I notify the regulators about unauthorized salvage activity in a restricted sector. And you get nothing. She stepped closer. I'm offering you a chance to profit from your discovery. Harrow, don't be stupid. Jax weighed his options. Zara was dangerous, but she was also efficient and well-connected. Having her as an enemy would complicate an already precarious situation. 60-40, he countered. And I maintain operational control of the project. Zara studied him for a moment, then nodded. Conditional agreement. I want to see what we're dealing with first. Reluctantly, Jax led Zara and her crew to the maintenance hatch. As they descended into the docking bay, he silently hoped Celix would understand the necessity of this compromise. Zara's reaction to seeing the Artemis was everything Jax had expected. Shock followed by naked avarice. The Artemis. She breathed, approaching the ship with an almost reverent expression. "I thought it was just a myth." "It's very real," Jax confirmed, "and partially operational." "Do you have any idea what this is worth?" Zara turned to him, eyes wide. Every corporation from Earth to the Belt would pay fortunes just for access to its technology. "It's not just technology," Jax said, feeling oddly protective. "It's alive, in its way." Zara gave him a strange look. "What are you talking about?" Before Jax could explain, the Artemis's external lights activated, and Celix's voice emerged from external speakers. "Unidentified personnel detected. State designation and purpose." Zara's crew members reached for their weapons, but Zara herself remained calm, eyes calculating. "Zara Voss, salvage specialist." She replied smoothly, "Here to assist with your restoration." A pause. "Biometric indicators suggest partial deception. Clarify intent." Jax intervened. "Celix, Zara has resources we need. She's proposing a partnership." Another pause. Longer this time. "Partnership parameters require definition. This vessel will not be dismantled for component harvest." Zara's expression shifted from surprise to intrigue. "An operational AI? That changes things." She turned to Jax. "You didn't mention your find could talk. Celix is more than just a ship's computer." Jax explained. "The Artemis was designed as a semi-autonomous vessel. Celix makes decisions, adapts to circumstances, and it's protective of its own existence." Zara observed, "Interesting." She addressed the ship directly. "I'm not interested in dismantling you. Intact, you're worth far more." "Clarification required. Worth in what context?" Celix inquired. "Historical significance, technological advancement, transport capabilities." Zara's voice took on a persuasive tone. "A functioning Artemis-class vessel would command respect throughout the solar system. With the right backing, you could resume your original mission parameters." The ship's lights pulsed gently, as if considering this. "This unit requires functional restoration before broader mission parameters can be assessed. Current priority: operational security and systems recovery." "That's where I come in." Zara said, "I have access to restricted supply chains. Whatever you need, I can acquire for the right price." "And what exactly is that price?" Jax asked warily. Zara's smile returned. "A seat at the table when decisions about the Artemis's future are made. And yes, our previously discussed profit split over the following weeks." An uneasy alliance took shape. Zara's connections proved valuable. She procured specialized components that Jax couldn't have manufactured or stolen. Her crew worked efficiently, following Jax's instructions with minimal complaint. Celix, for its part, seemed to be evaluating Zara, often engaging her in conversations about salvage operations and colony politics, while systems diagnostics ran in the background. "Your operational history indicates significant success within resource-constrained environments," the AI observed during one such exchange. "That's a fancy way of saying I'm good at getting what I want." Zara replied, calibrating a communications array. "Query: what do you want from this specific venture?" Zara's hands paused their work. "Initially, profit. Now, I'm not entirely sure." She glanced toward where Jax was working on another system. "There's something about this ship, about what it represents. A relic from when humans built things to last, to explore, not just to exploit. Your response indicates value alignment beyond material gain. Don't read too much into it." Zara said sharply. I'm still here for my cut. But something was changing in their dynamic. Jax noticed Zara lingering after her crew departed, asking Celix questions about its original mission, about the early days of space exploration. There was genuine curiosity there, perhaps even respect. Their progress did not go unnoticed. Colony security patrols increased in the vicinity of Jax's workshop. Surveillance drones occasionally hovered nearby. The regulators were suspicious, but without concrete evidence of illegal salvage. They couldn't justify a raid. Then came the official notification, an inspection order, citing unusual energy consumption patterns and unauthorized structural modifications. The colony administrators had given them 3 days to prepare for a formal investigation. They know, Jax said grimly, showing the notice to Zara. Someone talked. Not my people. Zara insisted. They understand discretion. Then they figured it out themselves. Either way, we're out of time. Celix, monitoring their conversation through the workshop systems, offered an observation. Restoration progress currently at 64%. Navigation, propulsion, and life support systems operational. Communications array at 38% capacity. Not enough to file the commander designation paperwork. Jax noted with frustration. We need that communications array at full capacity to transmit to Earth's central authority. And we need at least another week to get the propulsion systems properly calibrated. Zara added, if we try to move the Artemis before that's done, we risk catastrophic failure. Jax paced the workshop. The moment they inspect this place, they'll find the maintenance hatch. Once they discover the Artemis, they'll lock down the entire sector. Then we accelerate our timeline. Zara said decisively, my crew works round the clock. We focus exclusively on the communications array. If we can get the paperwork filed before they inspect, even if we manage that, they could still impound the ship while the claim is processed. Jax interrupted. Bureaucracy moves at its own pace. Celix's voice joined the discussion. Alternative solution available. This unit possesses emergency protocols designed for diplomatic exigency. Both humans turned toward the nearest speaker. What kind of protocols? Jax asked cautiously. Temporal authorization framework. In situations where standard communication channels are compromised. Artemis-class vessels can initiate provisional command structure pending formal verification. You're saying you can make Jax captain now? And sort out the paperwork later? Zara translated. Affirmative. With limitations. Protocol requires physical presence at Central Command interface and biometric integration. Process is irreversible until formal review. Jax and Zara exchanged looks. What exactly does biometric integration entail? Jax asked. Simplified explanation. This vessel creates secure command link with designated individual. Link permits emergency authorization and override capabilities. And in non-simplified terms, Zara pressed. A brief pause. The process temporarily incorporates aspects of this unit's operational architecture into the commander's neural patterns. Human terminology approximation. Partial synchronization of consciousness. Jax felt a chill run down his spine. You want to merge minds with me? Negative. Consciousness remains distinct. Interface creates communication pathway only. No permanent neural modification. But there are risks, Zara guessed. Affirmative. Previous implementations resulted in varied outcomes. Optimal candidates demonstrated high adaptive capacity and technical aptitude. Jax ran a hand through his hair. So basically, I let you into my brain. and hope my adaptive capacity is good enough to handle it. Risk assessment based on observed parameters suggests 87% probability of successful integration. And the other 13%? Zara asked. Neural desynchronization. Potential outcomes range from temporary disorientation to permanent cognitive impairment. The workshop fell silent as both humans absorbed this information. There has to be another way. Zara finally said, "We could try to bribe the inspection team, or create a diversion elsewhere in the colony." "No," Jax interrupted. "Celix is right. This is our best option." He turned toward the main speaker. "How soon can we attempt this integration?" "Minimum systems requirements already met. Procedure can commence immediately." Zara grabbed Jax's arm. "You can't seriously be considering this. It's talking about rewiring your brain." "Not rewiring," Jax corrected. "Creating a communication pathway. And yes, I'm considering it. Because the alternative is watching the Artemis get carved up by colony administrators or corporate vultures." He looked into her eyes. "I didn't spend weeks restoring Celix just to lose everything now." Zara studied his face, then slowly released his arm. "Your funeral," she said. But there was concern beneath her brusque tone. That night, Jack sat in the Artemis's command chair, surrounded by softly glowing interfaces. Celix had explained the procedure in greater detail. How the ship's systems would establish a quantum-level connection with his neural patterns, creating a temporary bridge between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. The process may cause sensory disorientation. Celix warned, "Focus on maintaining cognitive equilibrium." That doesn't sound ominous at all. Jax muttered. To Zara, who stood nearby monitoring the ship's systems, he added, "If this goes wrong—" "It won't," she interrupted firmly. "And if it does, I'll drag your drooling body to the colony's medical center myself." Jax smiled despite his nervousness. "Your bedside manner needs work. Initiation sequence requires verbal confirmation." Celix prompted. Jax took a deep breath. "I confirm. Begin integration." The command center's lights dimmed as power redirected to the procedure. A gentle hum filled the air, gradually increasing in frequency until it was almost beyond hearing. The chair beneath Jax reconfigured itself, embracing his body like a cocoon. Neural interface activating. Celix announced, "Maintain steady respiration and mental focus." Jax closed his eyes as a tingling sensation spread from the base of his skull throughout his body. His awareness of the physical world began to fade, replaced by something vast and intricate, like falling into a sea of information. He could sense Celix's presence, not as a voice now, but as a complex pattern of thought and purpose. The AI's consciousness was fundamentally different from his own, ordered, multifaceted, processing countless operations simultaneously. Yet there was something recognizable there, too. Curiosity, determination, and something almost like concern. Images flashed through his mind, stars seen from perspectives impossible for human eyes. The curve of planets, the void between systems, fragments of the Artemis's past missions, faces of previous crews, snippets of conversations in languages he didn't recognize, but somehow understood. "Too much!" Jax gasped, overwhelmed by the influx of information. Immediately, the flow receded, becoming more manageable. He felt Celix adjusting, accommodating his human limitations. Integration proceeding within acceptable parameters. The AI's voice echoed, both in the physical space and directly in his mind. Command protocols transferring. Suddenly, Jax could feel the ship as an extension of himself, its systems, its capabilities, its needs. He understood its design at an intuitive level that transcended his mechanical knowledge. The Artemis wasn't just a vessel. It was an organism of metal and energy, designed to adapt and evolve, and Salix was its soul. Provisional command structure established, Salix announced. As the integration process began to stabilize, Jax Harrow recognized as acting commander of Artemis-class vessel designation Alpha 7. As Jax's awareness of his physical body returned, he opened his eyes to find Zara watching him with unconcealed concern. "Did it work?" she asked. Jax nodded slowly, adjusting to the strange dual consciousness he now experienced. He was still himself, but with an added dimension, a constant awareness of the Artemis and a direct line to Celix's processing. "It worked," he confirmed. "I can feel the ship, everything from life support status to fuel reserves. And Celix is... it's like having another person in my head, but not intrusive. More like a presence just beyond normal perception." "Commander status confirmed," Celix stated. "Emergency protocols now available for activation." "Good timing," Zara said grimly, checking her communicator. "Because we've got company. The inspection team arrived early. They're at your workshop right now." Jax stood, finding his balance surprisingly steady despite the momentous change he'd just undergone. "Then we need to move quickly. Celix, what options do we have?" Through their new connection, Jax received not words, but direct understanding. A comprehensive awareness of the ship's defensive capabilities, ranging from simple security measures to more aggressive options. "No weapons," he specified immediately, sensing Celix's combat protocols stirring. "We need to deter, not harm. Gravitational manipulation systems operational." Celix suggested. "Localized field distortion would create non-lethal deterrent." "Do it," Jax decided. "And begin power-up sequence for all essential systems. We might need to move sooner than planned." Through the ship's sensors, now an extension of his perception, Jax could monitor the regulator's progress. They had discovered the maintenance hatch and were preparing to descend. "Zara, get your crew ready," he instructed. "Once the regulators see the Artemis, all hell will break loose." She nodded, already contacting her team through her communicator. "What's the plan? We can't fight our way out of this." "We're not going to fight," Jax assured her. "We're going to negotiate, from a position of strength." The first regulator to descend into the docking bay froze at the sight of the fully illuminated Artemis, its systems humming with power. More followed, their expressions shifting from shock to calculating assessment as they recognized the value of what they'd discovered. "Unauthorized salvage operation," announced their leader, a stern-faced woman with captain's insignia. "This vessel is hereby impounded by colony authority." Jax stepped forward, Celix's presence in his mind giving him a confidence he'd never known before. "This ship is not salvage. It's an active Artemis-class diplomatic vessel, and I am its legally recognized commander." The captain scoffed. "A likely story. Produce documentation immediately or face arrest." "Documentation is being processed," Jax replied calmly. "But in the meantime, I suggest you consider the diplomatic implications of attempting to seize an autonomous vessel with protected status under the Treaty of Ganymede." The regulators exchanged uncertain glances. The treaty was ancient but still binding, if this truly was what Harrow claimed. "This area is under colony jurisdiction," the captain insisted, though with less conviction. Any vessel within our territory is subject to our authority. Celix, Jack said softly. A demonstration, please. The gravitational field around the Artemis rippled. The regulators stumbled as their weight seemed to fluctuate. Objects in their pockets lifting slightly against gravity's pull. This vessel has capabilities beyond standard colonial technology. Jax explained, maintaining a diplomatic tone despite the implied threat. It also has rights that predate Zenith V's founding charter. I'm proposing a peaceful resolution, official recognition of the Artemis's status, and my position as its commander, in exchange for certain benefits to the colony. What benefits? The captain asked warily. Advanced technology, medical systems beyond your current capabilities, power generation methods that could reduce the colony's resource constraints. Jax gestured to the ship around them. The Artemis was built to forge connections between worlds. It can serve that purpose here. The gravitational fluctuations ceased, but the message had been delivered. The regulators conferred among themselves, clearly reassessing the situation. We'll need to consult with colonial administration, the captain finally said. Until then, no one leaves this area. Agreed, Jax responded. But no one enters the ship without my authorization either. After the regulators established a perimeter and began their communications with higher authorities, Zara approached Jax with newfound respect in her eyes. Commander Harrow, she said, half teasing, half serious. Quite the performance. Not entirely a performance, Jax admitted. The integration with Celix. It's changed something. I understand things I shouldn't possibly know. Diplomatic protocols, interplanetary law, the Artemis's capabilities. Speaking of capabilities, Zara lowered her voice. If things go sideways with the administration, can this ship actually fly? Get us out of here? Jax considered the question, consulting the awareness that Celix provided. Yes, but not without risk. The propulsion systems are operational but not fully calibrated, and a hostile departure would make us fugitives. Sometimes being a fugitive is better than being a prisoner, Zara remarked. Just keeping our options open. The negotiations with colony administration stretched through the night and into the following day. Word of the Artemis's discovery spread throughout Zenith 5, drawing crowds to the security perimeter established around Jax's workshop. Some came out of curiosity, others with more practical interests, representatives from various factions within the colony, each hoping to secure advantage from this unprecedented situation. Jax, with Celix's guidance, navigated the complex political landscape with surprising skill. He held firm on the central point, his recognition as the Artemis's commander, while offering concessions on matters of colony access and technological exchange. Zara proved unexpectedly valuable during these discussions. Her knowledge of colonial politics and factional interests, helping to shape compromises that satisfied multiple parties. You're not just in this for the profit anymore, are you? Jax asked her during a brief respite from the negotiations. Zara shrugged, but her expression was thoughtful. Let's just say my interests have expanded. The Artemis represents something more than salvage now. It's a chance to change things in this dust trap of a colony, and perhaps beyond. Celix added, its voice emanating from a nearby panel. Historical records indicate Zenith 5 was established as a temporary outpost. Its current resource constraints result from administrative neglect, not inherent limitations. You're suggesting the Artemis could help the entire colony, not just its commander? Zara asked. Affirmative. This vessel's original mission parameters included diplomatic and humanitarian functions. Such applications remain viable. Jax felt a surge of possibility through his connection with Celix. Images of the Artemis serving as a lifeline for Zenith 5, establishing new trade routes, accessing resources currently beyond the colony's reach. We could make a real difference, he realized aloud. First, we need to secure our position. Zara reminded him pragmatically. The administration is still deliberating. As if summoned by her words, the regulator captain returned, accompanied by two figures in the formal attire of colony administrators. Jax Harrow. One announced, a thin man with the precise diction of someone accustomed to authority. The administration has reached a decision regarding your claim. Jax straightened, feeling Celix's calm presence bolstering his own, and after reviewing historical records and consulting with Earth authorities, we acknowledge the unique status of Artemis-class vessels under interplanetary law. The administrator's expression suggested this concession was painful. Your provisional command status will be recognized, pending formal certification from central authority. Relief flooded through Jax, immediately tempered by caution. And the conditions? The Artemis will be registered as a Zenith 5 auxiliary vessel. You will retain operational control, but all activities must be coordinated with colony administration. Additionally, an oversight committee will be established to ensure appropriate utilization of the ship's capabilities for colonial benefit. Acceptable, Jax replied, after a brief internal consultation with Celix. With two amendments. First, Zara Voss is to be recognized as first officer, with all associated privileges. Second, the Artemis retains autonomy in matters of internal operation and crew selection. The administrators exchanged glances, then nodded reluctantly. Those terms are acceptable. Documentation will be prepared immediately, as the officials departed to formalize the agreement. Zara turned to Jax with surprise. First officer? When did we discuss that? We didn't, Jax admitted. It was Celix's suggestion. Actually, something about your operational compatibility and strategic value. I'm honored, Zara said, with only the slightest trace of sarcasm. Though I should warn you, I've never been good at following orders. Good thing we're making this up as we go, then. In the days that followed, the Artemis emerged as a symbol of unexpected possibility for Zenith 5. Its existence represented a bridge between the colony's hardscrabble present and a more promising future. Work crews swarmed over the abandoned hangar, transforming it into a proper docking facility. Engineers studied the ship's systems with reverent care, under the watchful guidance of Celix and Jax, for Jax himself. The integration with Celix continued to deepen. What had begun as an emergency measure evolved into a genuine partnership. Human intuition and adaptability complementing artificial precision and knowledge. He remained fundamentally himself, but expanded, connected to something greater. One evening, as Zenith 5's artificial night cycle dimmed the colony's lights, Jax stood on a newly constructed observation platform overlooking the Artemis. Zara joined him, her usual intensity softened by the day's successes. So, Commander, she said, leaning against the railing beside him. Now that we've secured our position, what's next? Joy rides for the colonial elite? Diplomatic missions to Earth? Jax smiled, his gaze fixed on the elegant lines of the ship below. Celix has been showing me star charts, places the Artemis visited before its disappearance, and many it never reached. You're thinking beyond the moon. I'm thinking beyond this entire system, eventually. Jax turned to her. The Artemis was built for exploration. Zara, for pushing boundaries. It's been asleep for a century, but its mission never really ended. "And what about your mission?" she asked, studying his face. 6 weeks ago, you were a broke mechanic with a busted permit. Now you're commander of a legendary ship. Quite the promotion." 6 weeks ago, I was surviving. Now. Jax gestured toward the Artemis, its hull gleaming under the hangar lights. Now I have a purpose, something worth doing. Through his connection with Celix, Jax felt the ship's systems shifting into night cycle conservation mode, a living entity settling into temporary rest. Yet, beneath that quietude, preparations continued. Navigational calculations, resource assessments, mission projections extending years into the future. Purpose is good, Zara acknowledged. But don't forget profit entirely. A girl's got to eat. Jax laughed. Don't worry. I have a feeling the Artemis will provide for all of us, in ways we haven't even imagined yet. Above them, through the hangar's newly installed transparent dome, stars became visible as Zenith 5's exterior lights dimmed. Somewhere among those distant points of light lay destinations the Artemis had once visited, and countless more it had yet to discover. Ready to explore uncharted space? First Officer Voss, Jax asked quietly. Zara's smile held equal parts anticipation and challenge. Lead the way. Commander Harrow, lead the way. Within his mind, Celix's presence hummed with approval and readiness. The ship that had slept for a century was fully awake now, its systems primed, its purpose renewed. And at its helm stood a mechanic who had found his true calling among the stars, not just to fix what was broken, but to build something new. The Artemis would fly again,